I'm here with Syfullah. We did that video a few weeks ago that got over 2,500 views on Twitter and was very well received. Very, very informative. I sure as hell know a lot more about Bangladesh than I did before our conversation, and I know a lot more now than I did. I've learned a lot since as well. So. Let me give you the floor for now, and let's break down a few more aspects of what's going on, what's the history and where we are now with Bangladesh.
Hello. Yeah. So thank you for having me on again. And I must thank the 2,500 people that spared their precious time to hear our blather. So I must thank them. Yes. So yeah, Bangladesh, yeah, is still bleeding. Today is the Eid day in Bangladesh. They're celebrating the end of Ramadan, the end of the month of fasting. But the celebrations are somewhat on hold because celebrations cost money, and the people do not have a lot of it at this moment because in last 8 months a lot of production has stopped. As you know, that Bangladesh is predominantly a ready-made garments exporter country. I'm sure 90% of the Americans have 90% of the Americans have at least one article of clothing made in Bangladesh in their wardrobe, without a miss. Gap, CNA, everyone has them. Everyone carries them. So yeah, more than 200 factories have closed, and a lot of people not not received their payments either for 2 3 months. There are workers protesting on the streets, and yeah, that's what is happening there now. People are people with vested interest, they're trying to point it towards the political turmoil, but there is a deeper and more sinister truth to that. So the majority, yeah, more than 60% of the workers in the garments industry are women. And the rise of the garments industry in Bangladesh basically fueled the women empowerment in Bangladesh. So uh, a lot of the lower and lower middle income families and women, they're now self-sufficient and they're not dependent on anyone anymore because of that industry. However, as we have seen in numerous news articles sitting in the West, that in Afghanistan, women are being treated in a very special manner. They're being stopped from going to school. They're being stopped from doing a lot of things. So this extreme Islamist ideology does not like the idea of women being independent or self-sufficient or having a voice of their own, having financial independence. So they had always been against the idea of women working or getting out of the home. In their mind, women are put in the world for only three purposes. One is to breed children, one is to feed the husband, and for the need of the household. That's their only job: feed, breed, and need. That's how they function. So for over 15 years, for over 20 years, they had been pushing this agenda of women not being allowed to work in a workplace. So right now the ready-made garment sector is on their crosshair, and is being targeted. More than 200 groups have closed. Over a hundred, close to 100,000 people are without a job right now. And when 100,000 people are without a job, that means 100,000 family are suffering. So that translates to almost a million people. So
It's
yeah,
interesting that your choice of the word "special" for how women are treated in Afghanistan and where it's going. An interesting choice of words, obviously.
well, I don't want to run the risk of using a politically incorrect word and get cancelled, obviously, but cannot really call it normal either. So yeah, I have to call it a special.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
is a special treatment.
But did you say that's been you said for 15 or 20 years they've been trying to move in that direction? This is before Eunice took over that
Oh
this is
yeah,
going.
oh yes, yes. Yunus is just a pawn in their grand scheme. Yunus is just a pawn in their grand scheme, because let's put it this way: Yunus is a banker. He's in the business of charging interests. So why? And interest is forbidden in Islam. You do not touch it, right? So why would the Islamists rally behind someone who is in the business of charging interest? And not just any interest. He's a de facto loan shark, higher interest than any commercial bank, with no room for negotiation or anything at all. So yeah. But yeah, some people try to navigate that with the idea, because there is inflation, because there is time value of money, obviously. So some people try to use the gold standard. So yeah, I'm lending you money worth of 1 ounce of gold today. Whenever you're paying back, you'll pay me worth of 1 ounce of gold. So I mean, if it is cheaper, they get less. If it is more expensive, they get more. I mean, it's like a bypass. But
Right.
yeah, in general, in Islam, it's forbidden to charge interest on any kind of loans. Right.
Interesting.
So the person who is in the business of charging interest, he cannot be an accepted or acceptable leader of the Muslims. It cannot be. It just doesn't happen. It doesn't make any sense. But somehow, the Islamist sect in Bangladesh, they are very happy to rally behind him.
And let's talk about 2024 for just a moment. I, I I understand the United States played a role in this.
If United States as a government played a role, that would benefit United States as a government or as a country, right? So it was benefiting a select group of people. I'll give you one example. One of the previous ambassadors to Bangladesh, Mr. Peter D. Haas, yeah, so he was an ambassador to Bangladesh from USA. He was a diplomat, obviously, but I do not know how much diplomatic protocol he maintained, because he was always socializing with people from the non-diplomatic circle, the political mid-level workers, even going to their houses and having dinner and everything else. Now, we do not know what conversation took place there, obviously. Now, just a few weeks before the July conspiracy, we like to call it a conspiracy, not a revolution or an uprising. Yeah. So, and obviously, Mr. Yunus himself admitted that this was meticulously designed. He said that in a stage in USA, sitting next to Mr. William Clinton. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, he admitted that. Now, Mr. Peter Dihas, he resigned from his diplomatic job just a few weeks before the July conspiracy, and after a few weeks, he joined a private company, a private energy company in USA, who suddenly got a deal, a very nice and lucrative deal in Bangladesh. So yeah, if it was the United States itself doing it, I would understand that, yes, because every country, every government must serve their own people first. Yeah, so even I may not support that, but I would understand that. But this was serving the purpose of a select group of people. So Mr. Peter D. Haas is implicated. Then comes the son of Mr. Soros, Alex Soros. He visited Bangladesh twice so far. Now, why? What business might the son of one of the richest men in the world have in Bangladesh that he will visit there twice within a span of 6 months, 7 months? Also, he was seen taking pictures with someone who is sporting a kifaya, the Hamas piece of clothing, sporting a kifaya. So why is the son of Soros in Bangladesh taking pictures with someone wearing a kifaya? So I shared a few photos in your X inbox if you would like to have a look. So I sent you one of my posts where you can see an ex-US diplomat in Bangladesh taking photos, all smiles, with someone wearing a kifaya. So am I allowed to ask, why are ex-US diplomats fraternizing with kifaya-wearing Hamas sympathizers?
I'm guessing this is the photo we're talking about, and then there's your guy, Mr. Soros.
Yeah, there is Mr. Yunus, there is Mr. Soros Jr., and next to him, Mr. Shahidul Alam, who is supposedly a photographer, but he's more an activist. Now he's a very interesting character with a lot of colorful history behind him, but he's not our topic. If you go to the second photo, you will see what I meant about an ex-US diplomat hanging out with him. Yeah, so that is Mr. John F. Danilovich. He's an ex-US diplomat. He was posted in Pakistan for a long time, mind you. Yeah, so he visited Bangladesh for 2 weeks with another ex-ambassador. They have some sort of foundation going about human rights or something that they call it, but it's all about Bangladesh. So why are two ex-US diplomats running an organization in USA which is all about Bangladesh, when none of them registered under the FARA Act? Am I allowed to ask that question?
It, it's unfortunately it's normal American business to do this kind of thing, and again, it doesn't reflect on the people of this country, but
Definitely not.
it's
Definitely
it's
not.
it's happening for 100 years with us already. I'm not going to go. We don't have to go there right now. Let's again, the main purpose of what I'm doing here is I want people to become aware of what's happening in Bangladesh. So I want to refocus on that. Um, I like to quote myself because I'm the blathering boomer, and blathering boomers tend to
Mm-hmm.
be somebody
Mm-hmm.
else. And one expression I came up with many years ago that I really like is recognition is the first step to resolution.
Definitely.
So this is the recognition portion of all this, because again, I know hundreds of people here, and I know maybe one or two who ever heard of anything going on in Bangladesh. Yeah, we all knew about George Harrison. We all knew about the cyclone and the humanitarian disaster, and Rabbi Shankar, and the concerts for Bangladesh. Oh, another thing too, and I know I'm skipping around again. The leader who was the main person in the 1971 revolution, he was assassinated apparently.
He
And
was in 1975.
so do you want to talk about that a little bit? I know I didn't prepare you for that one, but I just found out about last night.
Yeah, well, it's now again, there comes the propaganda and the alternative facts. So, after a devastating war where 3 million people were killed, the entire country looks like Gaza. It takes time to bring it back up. It takes time to build it back up. Now, he was trying to do that, but obviously he had issues from inside and outside both. We did not have any foreign currency, so we could not buy food. 3 million people died. No one knew who is going to farm. We did not have food. We did not have any dollar to buy food, so we had to resort to bartering. What we had is jute. We make very good jute. We make the most, like the best quality and the most amount of jute in the world. Yeah, so we tried to barter some jute with Cuba to get some grains, food grains. But as Cuba was not in the books, not in the good books of US at that moment, we were imposed with a food embargo. Now that the lack of farming led to a famine in Bangladesh. And the leftist sect who were following the Chinese doctrine. Now, in the world, there are two kind of, two main type of leftists. One is like one follows Russians and one follows the Chinese. One follows Stalin or Lenin, and the other one follows Mao Zedong. Right. So the Chinese sect, they jumped at this opportunity because we all know that the Chinese are good friends of Pakistanis, and this Chinese sect, they will always do what is told from Peking, now currently Beijing. So yeah, so they jumped at this opportunity. They had their own newspapers and everything. They staged photo shoots. They put a fishing net on a girl, nothing else, just a fishing net on a girl. It was a staged photo, by the way, and they took the photo and put it on the paper. Like, this is what the people are at right now. Now, that led to an outburst. Obviously, we're not going to like to see a girl wearing a fishing net and nothing else on the newspaper, on the first page of a national daily. Yeah, so things like these were staged, orchestrated by the China leaning leftists, and that went on. So Slowly but surely, the sentiment was contaminated. And at one point, with the green signal from our version of the deep state, the the autocracy, the bureaucratic deep state that we have all over the world, some army officers, they took it upon themselves to assassinate him. And from that point on onwards, everyone who was in prison waiting for war crimes of 1971 were released. Self-proclaimed and admitted war criminal was made, Shah Azizur Rahman was made the prime minister of the country. So Bangladesh was started going back towards what it was. So that happened in 1975, and up until 1996, they had a free reign. The party of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, Awami League, was marginalized everywhere. The freedom fighters were marginalized everywhere. I have family members who were freedom fighters who were in the government jobs. Now, in those times, one of them, he was transferred. His workplace was changed within 12 calendar months 8 times. Now, that is just harassment. You do not send someone 8 times to 8 different parts of the country. So at one point he just had enough, and he emigrated to USA right now. He's in USA right now with his entire family. So I know another person, a doctor. He was transferred 21 times during those times. He's a doctor. Now, if you move a doctor 21 times in 1 year, when is he gonna serve the people?
Right.
Right. So the freedom fighters, anyone who believed in the liberation war, anyone who believed in 1971, anyone who remotely aligned with Awami League, were marginalized, tortured, killed, brutalized during the period of 1975 till 1996, completely. And especially the non-Muslims. In 1971, we had a 30% population of us were Hindus. Right now it's down to 7%. Now, they did not really go heavily into contraceptives, as you know, because the contraceptive sales did not really increase in Bangladesh. So where did that 23, 21 to 23% go? A lot of them were killed, obviously. Not all of them, but yeah, a lot of them immigrated to India because they just could not be here anymore.
Right.
So, you do not leave your land if you absolutely don't have to.
Of course not. Of course not. I guess people think
Right.
that, myself included, the 1971 revolution happened and everything was more or less okay until 2024. But apparently that's not the case. In
Oh,
1975, we had a military
no, not
coup.
even close. Not even
So in
close. Now,
1996,
now
Hasina,
1996, yeah, Hasina came back to power. Sheikh Hasina, she finally won an election. And like I said, in the third world, in the global south, elections are more selections. You can decide, right? You can draw your electoral borders at your wish. You can decide who you're going to let vote, who you are not going to let to vote. You can decide that. So if you feel that that particular locality is going to vote for someone you do not like, you just make sure that voting doesn't take place there. It's not very difficult. 1996, she came into power, but we have a 5 years term limit for governments. Now, 5 years is too small to undo the damage of 21 years.
of course.
Mind you, the anti-liberation forces, they were prospering the entire time. They had been prospering. Yeah. So end of the day, it all comes down to money, and they had been raking it up. They had been raking it up big.
Right.
So yeah, that had been going on. So 5 years is too small to undo the damage of 21 years. Then there's another election in 2001. The other big party, BNP, Bangladesh Nationalist Party, they came to power. Sheikh Hasina happily gave up power. Yeah, that was a smooth transition. No violence whatsoever. And then in 2006, when that term ended, they tried to give the power to a so-called interim caretaker government, unelected, unaccountable to anyone, which turned to some more technical problems, and that government ended up lasting for 2 years. Yeah, so that was the first time when Dr. Yunus put his head up for for running for the for running for the office. He tried to launch his own party, and some so-called large media houses, they fueled this fire as well. It was a big -2 plan. So the two big parties run by women, both of them. One is the daughter of the person who liberated Bangladesh, and one is the wife of one of the ex-presidents. And he was also a freedom fighter. He was one of the commanders of our liberation war. So this sect, our version of the deep state, they tried to run this -2 program, where they would minus both of them and have a third one there, right? And Dr. Yunus was their mascot for that program. He tried to launch his own party. He took out full-page adverts on the national newspapers, asking people for their opinion, how they want to see it, and everything. He received a lot of abuse, and he went back. People did not really welcome him. So yeah, so that was in 2000, that was 2007 and 8, 2006, 7, 8, that period of time. So 2009, Sheikh Hasina won again in the election. She assumed power, and after, like, within a month of her taking office, there was a massacre of army officers in one of the paramilitary bases in Bangladesh. Yeah, so there are a lot of conspiracy theories about this one. Yeah, lot of conspiracy theories. Yeah, so then Sheikh Hasina assumed office again, and she went head first into development. Now, Dr. Yunus, he compared Bangladesh to Gaza in one of his recent interviews with a British journalist, where he compared Bangladesh to Gaza. Like, that's like, Sheikh Hasina left him a Gaza to govern. So I would either he does not go out in Bangladesh and doesn't see what it looks like, or he doesn't know what happened in Gaza. Yeah, because Gaza is flattened.
Right.
Gaza is simply flattened. Yeah, in Bangladesh, yeah, there had been some burning down and breaking of things during the July conspiracy, but it's not Gaza. No one bombed the place.
Right. Right.
No one bombed the place.
Well, the
Yeah,
problems are
so
internal. The problems aren't external.
exactly, and like I said, everyone is saying whatever they want to. Yeah, it's not dependent on the facts or figures, but they just want to say whatever they want to, and if it is right or wrong is decided on the reach on social media. So if you have a million like and 100,000 share on a post, that becomes fact. It doesn't matter how far it is from the actual fact. It doesn't matter.
Right.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so right
We know that
now
very well here in this country. Yeah. Yeah.
so yeah right now uh, he just went to China and he proposed to make a 50 years plan with China about water management. And like, these are being done for only one thing. He's trying to cash in on the conflicts between India and China. He's basically signaling to India that no, I'm being friends with China, so back off. Well, India did not really do anything to him. Yeah,
Right.
so yeah, that's what is happening, and yeah, he's currently hijacking credit for the things that Sheikh Hasina did. So yeah, they are changing the dates of things and claiming it to be their own, but those were done 2 years back, 3 years back.
Now, I'm particularly interested, of course, in the role of the Americans and all this. And it's come to my attention that there's an island. So apparently the United States is interested in a military base on that island off the coast of Bangladesh. Do you know anything about that?
Mm, well, that is a very significant that's a very significant and critical geographical location. I'll give you some facts. So, Indian Ocean, now that is Bay of Bengal. These islands are in the Bay of Bengal, and it is connected to the Indian Ocean. right? Now,
Right.
Indian Ocean is the only ocean in the world where USA does not have a military presence. They do not have some sort of navy fleet stationed. Everywhere else, there is something. Right. Indian Ocean is the only place they do not have a military outpost. Excuse me. I'm sorry about that. Sorry about that. Yeah. So
Okay.
now, if you zoom into that map, if you zoom into
Yeah,
that map,
I'll
if
bring
you
it back
can,
up.
or
I'm not sure
yeah.
I
So
can make it any bigger, but
okay.
I can
So what
try.
what I am going what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna open up Google Maps and I'm gonna share that with you. That works?
That's your screen. Okay.
Yeah. So here, if you can see my mouse pointer, here is Saint Martin's,
Okay.
right? There is Saint Martin's. Now, the Chinese, obviously, they're the exporting giant in the world, and all of the export that goes to USA, the North Coast USA, sorry, East Coast USA, Canada, East Coast Africa, West Coast Africa, Europe, Middle East, takes this route. Yeah, it goes through South China Sea, yeah, and through
Right.
Singapore. This is the route they take. Now they either go to Middle East through here, or they go into Gulf of Eden and go and take the Suez Canal, or they go around Africa for the African ports, or they take the Suez Canal towards East Coast or Europe. So that is the route, if you can follow my mouse pointer,
Yes, yes.
right?
This is
Now,
coming from China.
exactly from China. So
Right.
now, if USA can have a military presence here, that will be very uncomfortable for China. So
Okay, I
that's
could
the
see.
whole idea here. That's the whole idea here. Number one. Number two. Number two. So I have shared a, what do you call it? A fellowship application couple of days back with you, if you remember. So certain Burmese USA association, they're asking for Myanmar citizens to apply for some kind of research fellowship, right? So why would a Burmese American association suddenly be, what do you call it? Suddenly be interested in hiring Myanmarese people? Is it not from the same playbook? Go into a country, hire the intellectuals and educated, infiltrate the propaganda, step by step. You have a Ukraine or you have a Bangladesh.
I heard about the a group called the Cookies, who were trying to bring Christianity to that region, which I don't see how that happens. But apparently, they've gained a lot of traction. Again, I'm new to all of this, so I never heard the word cookie before yesterday.
Cookies are an ethnic group, mainly based in India, like northeast India, is at the very eastern end of India, and as they're very small and very uh, uh, old ethnic group, the geographical boundary doesn't really matter to them. We have some of them in Bangladesh as well. Nice people, beautiful people, but they had been being indoctrinated, yeah, by the extremist sect of Christianity that you need a country of your own. So if you Google or if you look up the Manipur conflicts from a few months ago in India, it was a bloodbath. Yeah, Kuki Chin conflicts. So two groups are fighting. One were the local indigenous Hindus, and the other ones were the converted Christians. The Christians straight up started killing the Hindus, and obviously they retaliated. So right now, Nagaland, Manipur, that area is very it's not, they're not sleeping in peace, let's just say.
Wow.
Right. So this cookie group, they have a grand idea of carving out a part of India, a part of Myanmar, and a part of our hill tracts, like uh, uh, our southeast of the country, and form their own Christian land. I do not know what they're going to do with that, because it's all hills and mountains. You cannot really make anything there. It's landlocked with no access to the sea or anything. So, but anyway, they want the country of their own. So this is being fueled by obviously some external parties who just doesn't want the South Asian subcontinent to be in peace.
Clearly, they have not been in peace for a very long time.
Yeah,
So back
close
to
to 500
Hasina.
years.
So Hasina gets elected again in 2006. Is that correct?
2008. 2008.
2008.
She went. Yeah, she went
And,
head straight. She went head strong, and she went head first into development. And diplomatically, she was very successful because she was one of the very few countries in the world who she was one of the very few head of states in the world who could shake hands with both Xi Jinping and Narendra Modi, both, and
and
both of
Modi.
them were happy to take their phone call. Now,
Okay.
that is special. So yes, this is a very much West-dominated world, but we had good terms with Russia as well. Russia is currently building a nuclear power plant in Bangladesh. We had good terms with USA as well. So that was the basis of the foreign policy of Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, the founder of the country. That friendship with everyone, friendship with everyone, malice to none. We are not in any camp. We are friends with everyone.
Right.
We are friends
And
with you as long
that's
as
wonderful.
you.
But the problem is in this world, it's very hard to sustain that because not
Yeah,
everybody feels that way. Unfortunately. Wow.
yeah. Someone needs to sell something.
So, are you familiar with this person, Abhijit Chavda?
I'm sorry, I'm not. Who again?
I'm going to play a very quick excerpt from him because I
Go on.
watched this a couple of days ago, and he seems to foreshadow. This is him in 2023, and it's a 20-minute video. I'm just going to play a minute or so of it. But he talks about the upcoming election that was to take place in January 24, and he's not a really big fan of the United States. But I'm gonna play a few minutes of it, and then maybe we can comment on this. So here we go.
So 1971, India liberated Bangladesh. We defeated Pakistan. And Sheikh Mujibur Rahman became the first prime minister, the first leader of Bangladesh. He was assassinated in 1975, and then there was a long period of military rule. Okay, let's not go into the details of the history there. There was a long period of military rule. The individuals who assassinated Sheikh Mujibur Rahman and his entire family, the killers today, they live in the West. They live in the US and in Canada. Maybe some may also be there in the UK.
So that's the first thing I want to ask about. Is that true? Are we harboring the wow? Okay, I can let him continue.
These nations, they talk about democracy and human rights and all that. They are openly sheltering self-confessed murderers on their territory, in their nation. That's the kind of hypocrisy you see from the West, right? So the killers of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, they are known to live in the US and in Canada. And then we have so then we had various phases in which you had some democratic process that happened. You had Khaleda Zia, who was in power for a while. Then you had Sheikh Hasina, who was in power for a while. Sheikh Hasina was the prime minister of Bangladesh in 2001 when you had this terrible India-Bangladesh border clash in north of Bangladesh, in which 16 or 17 BSF Jawans were killed by the Bangladesh Rifles. This was an absolute low point in the relations between the two nations. And since then, Sheikh Hasina has been instrumental in improving the relationship between the two nations. And this has taken to the next level after the election of Prime Minister Modi in 2014. So after Mr. Modi came to power, India and Bangladesh resolved the long-standing border issue, the enclaves and exclaves of the two nations, this incredibly complicated border that the two nations had. This was resolved in 2015, 2016. The maritime border issue was also resolved. India and Bangladesh started cooperating in a variety of ways. they started building cross-border railway links. In 2021, Bangladesh Tri-Services contingent took part in India's Republic Day parade. Bangladesh has also cooperated with India when it comes to taking action against various foreign-funded terrorists and militants and separatists in India's northeast, far east region. The Bangladeshis have cracked down on that, on these anti-India activities.
So I just want to make sure you're still with him at this point. Is he okay? I'm gonna keep on going.
Yeah, he's still correct.
Which were taking place.
Yeah. Is there anything you want to comment on before I have him continue?
I have a comment, but I'll make it at the end. Go on.
Okay. And at any point, if you want me to pause, I will pause for comments, because he goes on for another 10 minutes here.
Is on Bangladeshi territory when Sheikh Hasina was not in power. So they've cracked down on that. The Bangladeshis right now are cracking down on cookie terrorists who are currently wreaking mayhem in the state of Manipur and also in Mizoram as well to some extent, right? So there's a tremendous amount of cooperation that is happening, increasingly happening between India and Bangladesh. So this nation, East Pakistan, that was created to destabilize and hurt India and keep India off balance, has now turned into a nation that has a great deal of cooperation and very good ties with India. And this is something that the West doesn't like. This is something the US doesn't like. So the US now wants Sheikh Hasina to be gone. They have said that they want her to be gone by 2019. And they are supporting the Bangladesh opposition, which is blatant, like I said, blatant interference in the democratic electoral process in a sovereign nation. The US is extremely sensitive about any kind of election interference. Since 2016, they've been crying about Russian interference in their elections, right? So when somebody else allegedly interferes in their democratic process, in the electoral process, it's a red line you can't cross. But they are perfectly fine with them interfering in the democratic process, the electoral process in sovereign nations. This is the kind of double standards they have always employed, right? And this is no surprise given their record, the track record over decades of regime change operations across the world. I mean, just look it up, what they've done in Africa, what they've done in other parts of the world. The fact that they currently occupy Japan militarily, they occupy the large parts of Europe militarily, Germany, Italy, and so on. And the US, what they do is that they like to create chaos and then use that chaos to control various parts of the world. The Middle East is a great example. What's happening in Europe, the way the European nations like Germany and other nations have been forced to absorb large numbers of tens of thousands of military age ex-ISIS fighters. I mean, this is how you destroy nations. This is how you create chaos in nations, and then you use that chaos to control what happens in the nation and to control the politics of the nation. So that's what the US does. That's what they specialize in. They also specialize in color revolutions like what they did in Ukraine, right? And that's what eventually gave rise to the Crimea crisis and the current Ukraine war. And the US itself has a very questionable record when it comes to democracy. I mean, look at this tweet by Elon Musk. Just a couple of days ago, a US judge overturned the Bridgeport Democrat mayoral primary election because of shocking evidence of fraud. And we also know that there are very credible allegations that the 2020 presidential election, was allegedly stolen by the Democrats. I mean,
I want to emphasize that point as well. Not to. I want to use the word sacred cow. I know that the cows are very sacred in the Hindu religion, but the 2020 election is a sacred cow in this country. If you criticize, if you say that you think that the 2020 election might have been rigged, you are labeled as an extremist and you are silenced. And as far as the regime change wars go, yeah, this has been happening all over the world. It was Iran. The government was, we helped overthrow the government. Central America, all over the place. Ukraine, Iraq. It never, ever, ever, ever has a good outcome. And
now these regime changing operations, so it takes two to tango, right? So it was basically a fight between the US and the Russia, US, the Americans, and the Russians. So the countries from the global south, they're just scapegoats. They're just victims in a bigger fight, nothing else. So Russians wanted the world to be communist. Soviet Union, they wanted the world to be communist, and US, they wanted the world to be, open market, capitalist, fight communism, end communism, and everything else. So it was a fight between, it was a war between USA and Russia, the so-called Cold War, being fought in every other third country in the world, except USA and Russia.
Right. And
So
it's
those
happening in Ukraine right as we speak right now, of course.
exactly. So I mean, I always say this thing jokingly, like, I mean, if US have to fight with Russia, or if Russia has to fight with US, why don't you just go do it in Alaska? It's 52 miles.
Yeah, right.
Right, it's
Yeah, fight
52
over the
miles between
Aleutians.
Alaska. Yeah, so leave us out of it. Do not involve the rest of the world. Go do it in Alaska. It's 52 miles. You can walk it.
Yeah, right.
You don't
Right.
even need your submarines.
Well, Sarah Palin, who ran for vice president in 2008, said, I can see Russia from my backyard. That was one of her big campaign slogans. Of course, her and McCain were not elected. We elected Obama that year.
Mhm.
Should I continue with him, or should we table him and continue talking?
No, I mean, yeah, let's table him because I mean, he just made it very personal. I mean, evidently he doesn't really like USA. Yeah, but
Right.
yeah, he did state some facts, except the very first statement that he made, that India liberated Bangladesh. Yes, India did help us. India helped us immensely, tremendously. They housed and fed 10 million of our refugees for 9 months to a year, right? Like feeding, medicine, training of the freedom fighters. It takes money. And as US was on Pakistan's side, the world was not with India on that one. So
Right.
it was only the Russians. They helped some, yes, but it was mainly on India. And to offset that cost, Indians had an extra tax on their civilians up until 1981. So for 10 years, the Indian people, they paid a tax which they had to spend to liberate for Bangladesh's liberation. Yes, and we shall be eternally grateful to them. But that does not translate to that they have liberated us. 3 million of our people died. We fought. Our civilians, our farmers, our students, our factory workers, they took up arms. Yes, India trained them, but yes, we fought. Yes, India did join the war in very early December, 3rd of December, I think, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, but that was basically formality because Pakistan could not very well surrender to a guerrilla force separatist movement. So to save face, they attacked India on the western front, like on the western side of India. So India got involved, and 2 weeks later, they surrendered to the joint command of India and Bangladesh.
Right. All right. So skipping ahead to 2024.
Mhm.
What in our first conversation you said that the spark that lit the fire was a rumor that people from India were taking the jobs of people from Bangladesh. How
Mhm.
did that spark? So walk me
That
through what
was
happened.
that was one of them. That was one of them. So yeah, what I was saying. So the freedom fighters, their families, anyone who was pro-liberation, anyone who was even remotely connected to Army League, were marginalized from 1975 and onwards. Yeah. So once and anyone who was against these ideas, they were in power. They were a part of the establishment. They were firmly placed in everywhere that matters. Right. So USA is a at will employment country, right? You can fire someone with a 1 week notice, and sometimes on the spot. Even then, the bureaucrats, the tenured bureaucrats, it's tough to fire them. Right. You have to pay them some compensation or something, or some notice period or something like that. Now
Right.
in Bangladesh, that's even harder to fire. To fire a government official. The bureaucrats is next to impossible. It's unheard of. It's very rare. Yeah. So if it's not on grounds like treason or complete mental breakdown, or something like that, they're never fired. Right. So for 20 years, they put their people in every single point that matters. So yes, Sheikh Hasina came to power in 1996, but she was dealing with that. She was blocked at every point. Every move she made, she was blocked. She was stopped at it. Right? So anyone who was pro-liberation were undermined and marginalized. So those families were suffering despite their families liberating the country. Now, job reservations, that's in the, what do you call it? That's in our constitution. Yeah, and it's all over the world. In all over the world, there is some kind of job reservation going on, even in USA. So the wards, the children's, or the family of the freedom fighters, they were given a 30% quota of the government jobs. Like 30% of the government jobs had a priority for the children or for the people from a freedom fighters family. Now, it was not like you are from a freedom fighters family, okay, you will start work tomorrow. No, you still have to pass 4 stages of examinations. Yeah, there is a very diverse and versatile MCQ styled examination of 200 questions or something, and then comes a very focused and rigorous written examination. You have to write for 5-6 hours a day. Then comes a verification of if you or your family or anyone. No, then comes a viva exam, like they're going to interview you. Yeah, they're going to take an interview of you. Then comes a verification or a background check. And after that, you can apply, you can say that yes, I belong to a freedom fighters family, and yes, I want that job. So for those 30% of the reservation, you will have a priority after you pass those four stages. Right?
Okay.
So at that point, it doesn't I mean, you're so the big idea of this entire conspiracy was their slogan was, is it merit or a quota? What are you going to employ it on? So they were implying that the people who are getting the job on based of the quota, they are not getting it on based of their merit, whereas all of them must pass all 4 stages of examinations. So if you pass all four, I mean, I'm sorry, pardon my French, but I cannot call you an idiot anymore, can I? You passed all 4 exams.
Right. And but by the
Right,
way, we have that issue here with DEI. There's a
exactly.
constant battle, diversity versus merit.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
obviously it doesn't end in revolution, but it's
Yeah.
yeah.
Now, diversity versus merit, that question can only come between two uh, equal persons. Like, take the diversity out of the question. Yeah, if like take the skin color out of the question, and then when they're equal, then you can use the skin color. Like I scored 10 out of
Right.
100. I scored 10 out of 100. A white guy scores 90 out of 100, but I get the job because I'm not white. That's not right.
Correct. But
Right. So
if you both score 90 out of 100 and one of you is marginalized and the other one isn't, I could see making a case for that, but they have to
exactly.
be equal on merit. That's a big argument that I
Exactly.
have all the time here.
Yeah. So our reservation system was based on that. On the basis of merit, you must be equal. You must prove yourself. Then we will see who your father is or who your grandfather is. Then we are going
I
to
have,
consider that.
I have another question though. You're talking about freedom fighters in 2024, but the revolution
No,
happened in 19.
the family of the freedom fighters, the
So,
children.
essentially, freedom fighter became an ethnicity in a way
In a
because
way, yes, because
yeah,
they had been being marginalized. They had been being
marginalized in a country
marginalized.
where they won their freedom. They should be heroic
Oh
in a
yes,
country.
oh yes,
Wow,
oh yes.
wow.
Yeah. So yeah, there's that. On the other hand, anyone who opposed the liberation, they were being rich and enriched every day. So the son of a a convicted and convicted and sentenced war criminal in Bangladesh. He currently owns a franchise sports team.
Right. Right.
Should it be that way?
Of
So,
of
I mean,
course not.
let's talk about Germany. So after the Second World War, the Nazis and their Nazi sympathizers, they fled. They went to Argentina and Brazil and Chile, right?
Right.
Their third generation, their grandchildren, they're just coming back to Germany. I know two of them personally.
Okay.
Yeah. So they're German. I met them at my German school. I'm like, you're a German, why are you here? Why are you learning German at a school if you're German? They're like, no, I come from Brazil. I'm like, I'm not gonna ask what your grandfather did.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
So back to 2024.
right. So that
Yeah.
was so this whole thing, yeah, it went through the propaganda machine and it was presented in a way that the quota people are taking all the jobs, that's why you are unemployed. So that agitated a lot of people, right? Then came that that respected Mr. Asif Nazrul, who is the law advisor of the current unelected and illegal interim government. He came up with the statement that 2.6 million Indians are employed in Bangladesh. They should be driven out, and Bangladeshi people should get those jobs. That added more fuel to that fire, right? So and in the meantime, by the way, it was this whole conspiracy, this whole movement was being run by the student wing of Jamaat-e-Islami. They're called the Shibir, Chhatro Shibir, student wing of the Jamaat-e-Islami, who were a problematic party in all three countries they're in. They're in Pakistan, they're in India, they're in Bangladesh, yeah, but they're in a problematic party in all three countries. So yeah, their student wing was running the show from behind, and they were being facilitated by various diplomatic missions and NGO offices. So one NGO office which has diplomatic immunity, obviously being an international NGO, they housed two of them overnight for their protection, which is treason.
Right. Right.
Which is treason. They should not be allowed to do that. So anyway, that happened. So and then suddenly, up until then, it was just it was going on. Now, mind you, this anti-reservation movement, it had been going on for a while. So in 2018, the government dissolved all quota. Sheikh Hasina herself, she said, okay, fine, there shall be no quota. In 2018, it was dissolved.
It was dissolved in
Right?
2018, but they used it as an issue in 2024.
Yes, because the reservation is in the constitution. So the children of the freedom fighters families, they went to the court, they went to the high court, yeah, and they appealed against, they sued the government, like, it's in the constitution, how can they dissolve it like that, right? So in 2024, the high court gave a verdict that no, dissolving of the quotas was unconstitutional. You cannot do it like that. The government itself appealed against that verdict in the Supreme Court. So the government was actually acting in line with the demand of the protesters. So tell me
Right.
this: how did that protest result into the 1 point movement of Hasina must leave? It doesn't make any sense, does it?
It does. No, that's my
Now,
question. Yeah.
now that translation and transition happened because some people died. Again, one person dying for unnatural causes is too many people dead. Yeah.
Right. You
Now
said
the
in our
first,
last conversation, you said the most important
yeah,
human right is the right to choose your own death, or the right to die in peace, or
is the right to a natural death.
yeah,
Yeah.
right to a natural
So,
death.
fun fact: up until that point, no one died, but suddenly there was a news article on the website of U.S. State Department that in the protests, two people have died. Two students have died. two students did die within 16 hours of publication of that report. Now, I understand USA is one of the most technologically advanced country in the world, but it's good to know that they can now predict deaths as well, like when people are going to die. It's good to see that.
Right.
So yeah, once you have blood, once you add blood to a mixture of a misguided and brainwashed, angry mob of young people, all hell breaks loose. Now, there is a discussion that it will always go on, like, did Sheikh Hasina leave the country or did she flee? She left the country on her own accord, because if she stayed in the country, what was happening? So the protesters, they had a plan, they had a program of attacking her residence where she lives, her government residence. They had plans of storming that government residence. Now, it's a democracy, yes, I understand. So yeah, Sheikh Hasina still has a lot of people who supports her. So if anyone, doesn't matter how many, tries to storm her residence, there will be, forget the police or anyone else, there will be civilians standing up to it, which would push the country towards a civil war. She did not want that. She did not want any more death. So she left. She's like, okay, I'm leaving. You don't want me. I'm leaving. Stop this destruction. Enough blood.
I have several questions, but keep going. I'll have questions when you're done.
Yeah. So then she left. She left on the 5th of August. And on 8th or 9th of August, Dr. Yunus came to Bangladesh and assumed office. So those 3 or 4 days, there were practically no government in Bangladesh. So people basically did what they wanted. Fun fact: when after assuming power, Dr. Yunus, he declared indemnity for everything that happened during that protest, during the so-called protest. Indemnity, no police cases. Yes, a lot of people died, but who killed them?
Right.
If you do not do an investigation, can you tell who killed them? So there are people who are shot dead. Yes, of course there are. A child died. A child in her home, in its own home, on the 4th floor of a house, died. How? Someone shot a sniper bullet through her balcony, and that went through her window and killed her. Now, if you do not investigate those deaths, if you do not conduct proper post-mortem investigations, how are you going to know which bullet killed who?
Right, but
Now,
the person who's stopping the investigation, it would appear, supports what went on and is complicit in these deaths. Otherwise, why not investigate if you're not sympathetic killers?
I'm not going to comment on that, but I will remind you that Dr. Yunus, he went to USA after assuming office, and he stood on a stage next to Bill Clinton, your ex-president, and he said that this did not happen in one day. This was meticulously designed. He said that.
This was when Clinton was president, or this was in 2024?
No, this was in 2024. He said that standing next to Bill Clinton.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right,
so yeah, that's there.
Couple of questions. One is the person I forgot his name, Avjit Chavda.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that I was playing was from 2023, and he talked a lot about the upcoming election in January 2024. So I'm assuming this is it's only sort of a question. I'm assuming that Hasina was reelected in January 2024 in that election.
She was.
So now here's I have a naive question and maybe a more thoughtful question. My naive question is, with all so she was elected in 2024. So constitutionally, she's still the leader of Bangladesh, it would seem.
She is. She did not resign. This current so-called government could not produce any document where she signed a resignation. She is the democratically elected Prime Minister of Bangladesh. as
And it
we
doesn't,
speak.
and it doesn't matter, apparently. So
To them,
I guess
obviously not.
my naive question maybe doesn't matter, because my naive question would be, why don't they have an election now in Bangladesh? But
Oh no, apparently they're doing reforms. They're doing reforms, and then they're gonna have a what do you call it? An election. Now my question is, who are you to reform? Who gave you the mandate?
right.
The
Right.
Constitution of Bangladesh was written under the leadership of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, who won that election in 1970. Right? So if you
And
want to,
Hasina's
if
his
you,
daughter. I want to clarify that.
yeah,
If I'm
Sheikh Hasina is his daughter. Yeah, I mean, she is the one of the only two surviving family member of that person. Everyone else is killed. Only her daughters are still alive. Everyone else is killed.
Wow.
Yeah, even his 10 years old son was killed. So anyway, moving on. So Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, he was elected. So a constitution was written under his leadership. Who elected Yunus?
Apparently
What
nobody.
what authority does he have to reform the constitution, to reform anything? If you call yourself an interim government, you cannot do anything permanent, can you?
Correct. Well, yeah,
So
not supposed to
if you
anyway.
yeah, so if you're an interim government, your only job is to hold the fort and hand it over to an elected government. That's your only job. That's it. Because you do not have a mandate. You're not elected, so you're not accountable. We cannot have an unaccountable government in today's world.
Okay.
So yeah, but
this brings me to my next question. Go ahead. Finish your thought. Finish your thoughts.
Yeah. By the way, some of the couple of his advisors and some other people, they have formed a new political party. They are calling it NCP. So they resigned from the government to form a party. So we are calling it a King's Party because they already have the power. Now they made a party so they can have an election and put the party in place. Happened twice before.
Do you think that party would actually get elected if there was a free and fair election?
If you want to run an election in Bangladesh, you have to put up a deposit. And if you do not get a certain percentage of vote of the total electorate, you do not get it back. Right? You need to have a minimum number of votes to get your deposit back. None of these guys will get their deposit back. Not a single one.
I assume the deposit's a substantial amount of money. So
it's not substantial. It's a token money. Yeah, but it's not about the financial loss. It's about the insult. Like even that minimum percentage of people don't want you.
Right. Oh,
so
yeah.
You came to election and wasted our time. So we are not giving you. We are keeping your money.
But it would seem, and again, I understand she's 85 years old already. So,
Who?
Sheikh Hasina.
No, Sheikh Hasina. No, she's 78, I think. Yunus is 84, 85.
Okay. So she's still got some powerful years ahead of her. Okay.
Oh, she does.
It would seem to me that she'd be overwhelmingly elected if they had a free and fair election, or is that naive of me to think that?
If they had a free and fair election, yeah, like if they actually let people vote, yeah, and not stop anyone, she will, in my books, she will get at least 60 to 65% of the votes.
Right.
Without a miss.
Right. And this leads us to things from the previous conversation. One was the democracy is an export of the USA delivered by B-52s. And the other is, again, and I don't have an answer for you from the question you asked me last time when you said name one good thing the United Nations has done, because before that conversation, my suggestion would have been have the United Nations go in there and supervise a free and fair election, and whoever wins now rules.
The question is, the UN will only do that when the Big Five wants that.
Right.
Does the do the Big Five want that? So
well, that leads me to
even was established to end colonization, but right now the world is a colony of the Big Five.
right, and you're not going to get United States, Russia, and China to agree, and I think it has to
No.
be right.
Yeah.
So Donald Trump.
Maybe even Russia and USA will agree. Maybe, like, USA under the leadership of Mr. Trump, they might agree. Even maybe Russia will agree. But I doubt about China, because Chinese decisions about Bangladesh will be influenced by Pakistan.
This is where Trump, at his best, could help. He's very fond of saying, I'm going to do a very bad imitation. If I was the president, Putin never would have invaded Ukraine. If I was the president, October 7th never would have happened. I wonder if we could add, if I was the president, 2024 in Bangladesh wouldn't have happened, because my understanding is the Biden administration.
I would be with you on that thought. Yes, I would be with you on that thought, because Mr. Trump is a very hands-on person. He's not a bureaucrat. He doesn't like paperwork. He doesn't like the what do you call it, the mazes of the government offices. He's all about, this needs to be done, then it got to be done. Simple as that. He's not going to set up 5 committees to discuss how it should be done. He's not that person. He's a go-getter. So if America was being led by Mr. Trump in 2024, I seriously doubt this, because the diplomats stationed overseas, they would not dare to use their position to pursue personal agenda. They would not.
Wow, that's interesting. So does it follow, perhaps, that now that Trump is the president, if you think that Russia could side with the United States, and I'm not concerned about England and France, that they'll probably, if the United States and Russia agree on something, I would imagine England and France would go along. China becomes the issue. Well, we have a lot of negotiations going on with China right now involving tariffs and trade and all this and all that. Trump, if nothing else, and I know a lot of people here don't like him, including the majority of people who are close to me don't like Trump. I have this argument about him all the time. It's kind of sad. But I think everybody would agree that Trump, if nothing else, is a deal maker. This was something I predicted when he was running for president. I'm not going to call myself a prophet, maybe just a little bit of a prophet, but what I said was RFK Jr., who was running for president in the third party at that time, he had political capital. And I said, Trump is a master deal maker. I know that RFK Jr. is a Democrat, but Trump needs to approach RFK Jr. and make a deal with him, because RFK has 2 choices: run for president and get 5 to 7% of the vote and lose and watch Harris get elected possibly, or join forces with Trump and ensure his victory, which I believe is exactly what happened. So in the same way, maybe...
Fun fact, in 2016, when your primaries are going on, I was talking to a diplomat friend of mine, and we would talk politics, global issues, geopolitics and everything. I mean, he's a diplomat, obviously, he knows more than I do. So we had a bet that who is going to win the election in November in 2016. He was like, Bernie Sanders. I'm like, nope, Donald Trump will be the president. He goes like, how can you say that? I'm like, let's bet on that. Bernie Sanders is not even going to get the nomination of the Democrats. He deserves it. And mind you, if it was Bernie Sanders running in 2016 instead of Mrs. Clinton, Mr. Trump would have a hard time.
Oh, yeah. I was a Sanders supporter at the time.
Exactly.
Worked very hard.
So, yeah. So that's the thing. So I mean, if Mr. Trump was in office in 2024, a lot of the things that is happening in the world right now would not have happened.
So does it follow possibly? I know that last time we spoke, you said there's no possible good outcome to this, that they're on a path to becoming Afghanistan. But is there a universe, somewhere in the universe, where Mr. Trump can make a deal with China, get them on board with the other 4 of the big 5, have fair elections in Bangladesh, and then have some kind of... I know we said the UN is useless, but there's such a thing as a peacekeeping force, because I do believe that if Hasina is reelected, there'll be trouble. But if we have peacekeepers there, even whether it's American or UN, I mean, to me that seems to be the only hope right now. Trump's only going to be president for 4 years, and I mean, really, my heart aches for what's happening there. I am such a big fan of first of all, secularism. This was a secular revolution that succeeded. That doesn't happen very much. So, freedom of religion or freedom to not even be of a religion is very, very important to me. And that's what, we recite the Pledge of Allegiance here. Even when I was in high school, I would not say the words "under God." I became an atheist when I was 15 years old. So, and I wasn't going to get arrested for that. I got a few dirty looks from teachers, but I wasn't in trouble. So freedom of religion is very, very important, and that's what you won in 1971. I would think that all the free-thinking, idealistic people of the world should be supporting Bangladesh, which is the main reason I'm doing this and speaking to you, because again, recognition is the first step to resolution, and this is my attempt at recognition from my little corner of the world. And by the way, I'm very grateful. After we spoke the first time, I got a lot of followers, Bangladesh supporters on Twitter, and a lot of very, very kind words about our conversation. So just so you know, people
they're
really
desperate. They're desperate. They need anyone. They are, like anyone who would even listen, who would even speak a word for us. They will have the gratitude of our people.
It's sad. It shouldn't be that way. I am grateful that you are taking the time to speak to me, and my big hope, because you have so much
It's my honor.
information. You're the last conversation we had was such an education. My hope right now is that somebody with a bigger podcast than mine sees this and reaches out to talk to you, and you get to a wider audience, because I think people really, really need to hear what you have to say. I am certainly a far more educated person for that, and I thank you for that, and I thank you on behalf of my Blatherverse, which only has a few dozen people. But hey, again, if somebody's outraged by this and they spread the word, this is how things can begin. Like ripples in the pond. So that's what we're doing. We've been talking for almost an hour and a half now, so maybe we want to close it down for the moment. I would like to speak to you again as a second choice. My first choice is that Piers Morgan speaks to you, or Joe Rogan, or Lex Friedman, or somebody like that, because you have a message that needs to go to a wider audience. And if I end up with a wider audience because of this, that is only a side effect. My main thing is I want to get the word out on this, and you've been a treasure in facilitating that.
Thank you very much. It had been my honor. And thank you for giving us the platform. Thank you for giving our pain a voice. We appreciate that, and we are grateful for that. Thank you very much.
Now, do you have any final thoughts before we close it up for today?
The only thing that matters to me: 8 billion people in the world. They should have the right to a natural death. No one should die before their time.
If that one wish was granted, that would be
my one wish. One wish.
What a world this would be. There's a line from an American song. What a wonderful world it would be. This would be a wonderful world if 8 billion people had a right to natural death. Anyway, last time we spoke,
is the only thing.
Okay, well, that's a good final thought, and then we'll close. Now, last time we established that you're an honorary boomer, so I'm
not honorary. I am a boomer. I'm past 40. I'm past 40, and I find any kind of technology to be witchcraft. So yeah, I am by definition a boomer.
I can truthfully use plural when I say the words I always close with. The boomers
have
blathered.